This is William Allen with my AEP A59 case study, a study looking at how a curriculum was updated to integrate essential writing skills and culturally responsive assessment to improve student learning. So first, looking at the case and establishing some facts. So we're looking at who was involved. We had the assistant principal, or myself, Kim, who has been there for 5 years. She seems to be the one that's really driving the push to revise the curriculum. And we also have Ellen, who provided training in the new program that they implemented, which I'll talk about later. And there was also some state coaches that were put into place because they're on their second year of improvement. And we also have teachers and staff and students. Where and when it's taking place, so this time we're at Triscuit Middle School. 7th and 8th grade, there's 650 students total. There's 80 teachers and staff, primarily Caucasian. It is in Rockford City School District, which is the outer ring of a metropolitan area, a large metropolitan area. It is considered urban. 80% of our student population is African American, 17% white, and 3% as identifying as other. They seem to be on the poor side, with 65% qualifying for free or reduced lunch and breakfast. They are very diverse academically. We have several that are in inclusion classes, several with multiple types of disabilities, and we also have some classes that are advanced. And finally, there is very low parental involvement, with just about 25% of the parents attending open houses and conferences, things like that. So what exactly occurred or is occurring at this school? So they are consistently scoring low in both math and reading especially. And by analyzing this data, they determined that short and extended responses were where their students were really tripped up. Many of them were not even attempting these questions, and if they did attempt it, they were getting 0, no credit for them. So the biggest problem is that there has been a lack of differentiation at this school. Lecture style has been heavily relied on by teachers across the subjects and disciplines, and as well as paper and pencil assessments only, so they're not utilizing authentic assessment to allow students to really demonstrate what they know in different ways. And even though, like I said before, there's advanced classes and a large diversity of academic achievement and ability, they're using the same curriculum and materials basically across classes, so they're not really changing anything to really tailor it to meet their individual students' needs. Again, they're on their second year of an improvement cycle, and they implemented a program or a model, formula writing model, and they implemented with great success, which, like I said before, I'll talk about that a little later on. So looking at any legal and ethical issues that we have, is harm being done in this scenario? Absolutely yes. The students, like I said, are suffering academic achievement. Their students' academic achievement is suffering, and they're not getting those critical writing skills that they need. And as quoted from the case study, the curriculum is built on a deficit model. It is built on repairing weakness, and it simply doesn't work. So they're trying to tailor their instruction to meet these gaps, but their approach is not accurate, and their approach is not effective, and it's not targeting those students and drawing on what they already know and helping them build in other ways. Has a law been broken? Again, yes. In the case study, it says that by law, students are required to receive differentiated instruction molded to their various needs, and the teacher's job is to teach to that variety, that diversity, which clearly was not happening before this new program is implemented. And was there a breach of contract? I would say yes, that follows that they would be required to teach to those certain standards, and they haven't been doing so. So to put it all together into one sentence, teachers are failing to teach in a differentiated manner, curriculum is failing to address writing needs, and students are consequently performing consistently low in assessments requiring writing. Across the subjects, they are struggling with their written response. So again, just briefly looking at who all is involved and what's going on. Kim, Ellen, the teachers and students all play a role in this. The parents weren't really mentioned as being a part of the solution, but they are a factor as well. The place is Triscuit Middle School, and the program that we're specifically dealing with is the current curriculum, and that's across subjects. They are all failing to teach writing in an effective manner, and the program that is adapted to be tied into their current curriculum is the formula writing model. So looking at and prioritizing some of the information, reviewing what we're looking at, The damage, again, the students are performing poorly and they're not acquiring those good writing skills. The school is not using authentic assessment that meets the needs of all students. They're relying on the same materials to assess very different students and hoping for results that are going to show true growth and be authentic, and they're not achieving that. They're also not being culturally responsive and providing opportunities to allow students to share their, ethnic and cultural identity, and very few activities have been promoted or been utilized to promote this in the school, and very few outside opportunities are utilized as well. It seems that before they're very rigid in their curriculum, lecture style, and not a lot is done outside of that. So again, our main focus is going to be on the students. They're the ones that are really struggling, but we also have the teachers, the assistant principal, the school, the district, and the community, and it does seem to be a district-wide implementation of this program. So they're going to play a factor. What it doesn't tell us is if the principal is playing a role in this change as well. It didn't really say. It seems primarily to be resting upon the shoulders of the assistant principal. And so looking at can a decision be made with this one, since we were provided the solution to this problem, I'm going to tackle it a little differently. A decision was made, and I'm going to try to explain why it was so effective. So looking at some options that could have been potentially made or could have been factors, option 1 would be to take no action, to make no changes to the curriculum or instruction. Option 2 would be a directive control. Again, these are from the case study. So providing an initiative top down, so saying here's what we're going to do and here's how we're going to do it. The teachers don't have a say in that. Option 3 would be directive informational, so taking the time to provide some choices for the teachers to choose from. Working collaboratively, so working with administration and teachers and staff to create a plan to tackle this problem that's been identified pretty clearly. Or option 5 would be to be non-directive and allow teachers to create a plan independently. So we'll look at some of the pros and cons and why the approach was taken that was taken. So evaluating our options. Option 1, taking no action. Obviously, it's going to require little to no effort. You're not doing anything differently, but the problems are still going to persist in your school. Option 2, directive control, ensures action by saying this is what we're going to do, but you can also struggle with a lack of buy-in from teachers since they don't really have a voice in that decision. Option 3, directive informational, again allowing them to have some choice in what they choose, so there could be more buy-in from teachers, but it will be time consuming to explore several different options, and not everyone may be on the same page. They might like different things and so forth. Option 4, collaborative. You're pretty much guaranteed buy-in from at least some teachers because they do have a voice depending on, and they are part of the decision that's made. You have a shared vision, but again, it's going to be time consuming and you can't please everyone involved. There will be people that are not fully on board with the plan that is chosen. Option 5, non-directive. This is nice for the administration because it kind of shoves the responsibility onto the teachers and staff. But in this scenario, whereas they were pretty set in their ways, there could be a lack of response and motivation from the teachers to really move forward and make changes. So instead of choosing the best option, I'll kind of go over the option or the route that was taken. I think it was a blended approach. So again, there was some directive control, whereas the district was recommended a program, and they seemed to say, here's what we're going to use. What they did allow was some flexibility in how they used it, and they allowed teachers to work together. So why did they take this approach? Again, action needed to be taken. The problem was clearly present, and this was a solution that was identified as one that could very much help their scenario. Again, it was recommended to them. It allowed teachers to work together and learn from one another, so they got to see teachers modeling these practices, and then they disseminated the information out to one another, so they got to work closely with one another. It was also a positive because they implemented culturally responsive practices and allowing students to write about things that they enjoyed, ensuring that they wrote about things every day, and really encouraging them to dive into their ethnic and cultural identity. It turned out to be very engaging and motivating, so it shifted the problem from the students and not being able to learn and they don't know this to how can we teach this more effectively and in different ways so that they are able to grasp it. So the method and the model that was brought in ended up being very engaging and motivating for the students because it wasn't just one way of learning, and it was a different approach than they had seen before. It also allowed teachers to implement a variety of choices and choose some of those resources that they utilized alongside the program, so there was some autonomy there. It also allowed them to be consistent as they worked together to generate rubrics, so that way the expectations were clear across the board. They knew what standards they were trying to have students meet, and there was also the flexibility in there that they could differentiate and tailor to each of the students. And it also looked forward to the future, or looked toward the future, in that they had teachers working together looking beyond what they could do with just the model in place. So once they no longer required just the model and they had gotten their writing structure and paragraph structure on track, what they could do to continue providing good education, especially in the field of writing and ELA. So again, the steps, instead of implementing the decision or imagining what I would do, the steps that this assistant principal took in tackling the problem, was that first they got together, they analyzed data, and they identified the problem and where it lied. Second, they provided training and professional development opportunities, again through one another, as well as they brought in Ellen to work with both teachers and students in modeling how this process worked and this model worked. They disseminated that information throughout the staff. Then they worked together to create rubrics and authentic methods of assessment that were both differentiated and consistent. That way it was a formal evaluation of the students' work that could also be as non-biased as possible. They then evaluated the different ways the program was being utilized throughout different classes and content areas, and that was at the administration level and district level, to see what teachers were doing to implement this program in their specific classes and programs and grade levels, areas, whatnot, and seeing what was working and not working. So they evaluated how that implementation was going. And then finally, as I said before, they formed teams to generate ideas that moved beyond the model. So they had something good in place, they really liked it, but they also recognized the need to look to the future and saying, okay, how can we go beyond this model? Once we have this on track and on target, how can we continue providing quality education and authentic assessment for our students? So those are those steps that were taken to implement this program, and it really seemed to be successful in turning it around. Thank you for watching my module.